Fantastic. Hello, everyone. This is the March 23rd meeting of the Beaverton Arts Commission. This is our retreat, session number 1. I'm going to do roll call, and then we'll call the meeting to order. Commissioner Anderson, that's me. I'm here. Commissioner Benoit is not here today. She's absent. She's not feeling well. Commissioner Blake.
Present.
Commissioner Blank.
Present.
Commissioner Bunnell.
Present.
Commissioner Castillo. April, are you here? Not here yet.
Oh, I see. I see her in the attendees. Let's see here.
Okay, she'll be coming. Oh, she's here. She's coming in.
Okay.
Okay. Let me see if I can.
I added her.
Okay, great. There you are. Okay. So Commissioner Castillo, let me see that you're present.
Yeah, here.
Commissioner Dahl. Commissioner Dunham.
Here.
Commissioner Fagan.
Here, and Sue is on her way. She is caught in traffic.
Got it. Commissioner Hendricks. Ryan. I know he's here. I'll skip him for now. He must have stepped away. Commissioner Jeromy.
Present.
Commissioner Landsberg.
Here.
Commissioner Pike will be late, but she's on her way. Commissioner Rohr. Is Sarah here? Yep.
I don't see her.
Any word from her that she's coming?
No, I mean, I didn't hear from her that she's not. She had accepted, so.
Okay. And Commissioner Silloway.
Here.
Commissioner Trimble.
Here.
There you are. And Commissioner Wachira. Is that how you say it, Jacob?
Wachira.
Wachira.
Yes. Here.
And we'll wait for Sue. She'll be here. And I saw Ryan pop back up.
Maybe.
Maybe, maybe not. But I know he's here because I can not only see his name, but we talked to him a second ago.
So, Lynn, I'm gonna launch our first poll.
Yes.
We're calling it our interactive poll. So get ready. It's not a test. It's supposed to be fun, enjoyable, but reveal some things about the dynamics and the personalities on our commission. So I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll, and it's a multiple choice. And then once we're finished, I will be able to share the results with you. So the first question is,
Thank you.
Which of the following roles in film and television best suits you? Producer, director, actor, screenwriter, costume designer, prop stylist, or extra?
Right on. So, by the way, we're called to order.
It's not letting me vote.
Yeah, it's not letting us vote.
It says hosts and panelists can't vote.
Shoot. We thought we had it, didn't we?
Well, dang it all. So the only way I think to get you to vote is to downgrade you. That sounds so terrible.
It's going to make them all disappear, though. We won't be able to see people's faces. We could just vote in the chat if we want.
Vote in the chat is a good one. That's a good workaround.
Let's vote in the chat, friends.
Who do we send it to? Just to one person or to the whole group?
The whole group. Everyone.
I'm just waiting for everything to trickle in here. Nice.
Germany's going to do them all. Or Findy's going to do them all. Sorry.
No, Germany's fine. I've been going by Germany a lot today. So yeah.
Okay. Good. I must have been picking up on what you were throwing down.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to end that poll. If we all feel like we've answered. Okay. All right. So I'm next up. I hope that I can share my screen with you. Just give me a moment here.
I was able to change this poll to make it so allow panelists to participate.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. 3 dots next to share the results.
That's awesome. Thank you for doing that.
Well, I don't know if it will work, but maybe for the next one it will work.
Can you all see this screen?
I don't see a screen. I see what's behind you. I see you.
Okay. Okay. I think I know. Hang on. I think I know what's wrong. Stand by. Oh my goodness. This is when we really miss in-person meetings. Yeah, for real. Here we go.
So Sue says she is on but can't get a picture.
Okay, that's okay. We can fix that.
Okay.
I'll get Sue.
So can everybody see that now? Yes, affirmative. Excellent. Okay, so I'm here to share with you a little bit more about the role and responsibilities of the Arts Commission and you as an Arts Commissioner. So we sort of group the role of the Arts Commissioner into 3 key areas. The first being advisors. That's for our grants program, for public art, for arts program policies and guidelines, other arts program initiatives as needed, such as events and outreach efforts. Second bucket in the middle, connectors. These are artists, connecting with artists, arts organizations, community groups, our NACs, residents, and resources. And third bucket, advocates. So this would be, for instance, giving public testimony to influence policy, regulations, and funding. This would have been for the Patricia Reiser Center for the Arts and any regional arts advocacy that we do as a group. So some of you may remember us going down to Salem to meet with our legislators to talk about any proposed legislation that would impact the arts and culture sector in Beaverton. That is just one example of advocacy done by the Arts Commission. Okay, so now I'm going to break down the Beaverton Arts Program. The large umbrella is the arts program, and there's many moving parts in the arts program. The first of which being public arts. So this is percent for art and private development projects. So percent, for those of you new to the commission, 1% of our capital projects is held aside for public art. We also have proposals in the public realm or accessible via right-of-way that are brought to the commission for review and approval. So we have the Public Art Committee, which is a standing committee. We meet as needed. Typically, it's been about once a month lately. This is a decision-making board, decision-making committee. So you actually will decide budget amounts, the scope of work for a public art project, artist recruitment, proposals that are brought to the committee. You review those, you approve those. You approve all of our art selection committees for each project. And yeah, that's generally the role of the Public Art Committee, which is a large role. Second, we have our Youth Arts Awards, which we just took back into our suite of programs this year. Our Youth Arts Awards committee is overseeing that. And generally we meet September to May or as needed. It's an advisory committee, and the staff liaison, it's both Courtney and I for that right now. It may shift to just being Courtney at a certain point. So this committee manages the call for applicants, our selection, they comprise the selection panel, and they organize the Youth Arts Awards ceremony and reception. Third is the grants. So grants is actually overseen by our Grants and Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee. This is a standing committee. They do make decisions on recommended grantees and recommended grant award amounts. Both Courtney and myself are the staff liaisons to that committee. We have 4 different grant types: our Lives Here community grants, our large grants, small grants, and open format grants. So that group really weighs in on all of the grants we award in those 4 different categories. Next, we have cultural planning and strategic partnerships. This is something that I consult with, that I oversee as staff, but consult with the Arts Commission as needed. So for instance, we are starting a regional cultural planning effort with a whole cohort of other cities, municipalities, metro, several counties. So I would come to the Arts Commission to seek your consultation as that planning process moves forward. So that's just an example there. And then our rotating exhibitions, those are the shows, the exhibitions that we have here at City Hall and any city facilities. Courtney manages that program as the primary staff contact, and I would consult you, the Arts Commission as needed, to update you on plans for that. And then over here on the right, this is sort of this general miscellaneous bucket, which I'm calling placemaking / at-large city initiative. So sometimes we will work with other departments. So Community Development Department is an example, where they will have an initiative that they're starting, and they want the arts program to be involved. So Street Seats was a good example of that. That was a program that was initiated by Community Development Department that we worked on with them, and I would be consulting with the Arts Commission as needed for that, but there's not a standing committee that oversees that work. So it would be kind of a case-by-case basis. So that's just the general overview of our program and how the Arts Commission intersects with the different facets of the arts program. Okay, so this is a little bit wordy, and I think you've seen this before, but I wanted to go over this because we do have new commissioners. So this is a matrix which basically says, okay, different areas of our program, how the Arts Commission is involved, what your role in it is, and the timeline. So first is Percent for Art. The Arts Commission is given authority to make final approval of all 1% for art projects. The role is the final authority regarding public art, though some projects may also need City Council and or Planning Commission approval for the larger context. Timeline: public art selection panels formed by staff, including neighborhood members, business district members, project team, architects, arts professionals, etc. So city public art projects not paid for 1%. The policy authority there, Arts Commission provides input on type of art, general guidance, and may propose their own projects. Their role is purely as advisory, suggestions, no budget authority. And the Public Arts Subcommittee meets to discuss and make recommendations to the full Arts Commission. Next is partner organizations, public art projects. So the Arts Commission has authority to approve murals visible from the right of way. So this is definitely within the purview of the Arts Commission, and any public art on public property. So there is no, this is advisory, there's no budget authority. And again, the Public Arts Subcommittee would take these projects up and bring them back to the Arts Commission. And then City Arts Grants, the Arts Commission Subcommittee has authority to make recommendations. So that's important. However, there's no budget authority. You can, for instance, you can make a recommendation of award amount for each grantee, but you will not make any decisions about how much we budget in total for the grant award types. And then staff provides an annual grant report to the full Arts Commission, and that would include all of our grantees from the 4 different grant types and the award amounts for each of those grantees. Marketing, this is one that comes up frequently. So marketing has historically been an ad hoc committee, and we make recommendations regarding print collateral or Arts Commission specific related information, anything about our events. City marketing, the city marketing department has the final say regarding all of our marketing content, including social media, any online content, press releases, and is done in partnership with the arts program staff. 10 Tiny Dances, there's no formal authority, but we do rely on our arts commissioners to serve as volunteers. And this year, I believe we are going to be asking one arts commissioner to sit on the selection panel. And that is a new, that would be a new thing this year. Something that I thought I advocated for with our staff. But we do also rely on your network, your community to help spread the word and really, you know, I think provide visibility to our programs. And then last is our Beaverton Arts Mix. Again, no formal authority. The arts commissioners volunteer at the event if they so choose. And then we would just rely on our arts commissioners to help promote and organize the event. We have historically had an events committee, and I think it was revisited because during COVID, because we were not doing events. And I don't know yet if it will make sense to form another events committee in the future. So I've kind of put a pin in that for the time being. Okay, this is my final slide. Okay, so this is really kind of repetitive. So what I want to stress though, and Lanny, my coworker Lanny, is going to talk a little bit more about what it means to be an advisory board of the city. But the Arts Commission is just one of 11 advisory boards that serve the city of Beaverton. It's a volunteer civic service. We're so appreciative for our board and commission members and committee members. So in the green buckets, these are these 3 categories: connectors, advisors, advocates. So connectors, you see on the left-hand side. Advisors is really like where you have authority, right? So we talked about the Public Art Committee, the Grants and Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee, and then our Youth Arts Awards Committee. Anything that falls outside of that is purely advisory, and we would take what you guys recommend and incorporate that, do our best to incorporate that in our program or consider it at the very least, budget and resources, staff capacity willing. So that's generally the rundown on the Arts Commission and how it intersects with the arts program and the role of the Arts Commission in the city. So I'm going to turn it over to Lanny, who's here with me in the room. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and have her talk a little bit more about what is an advisory board and how does it serve the city.
Sure.
So
Great.
Lanny,
I'll
take it away.
Oh, I love what you've already shared. So I guess I would just add that the city has primarily 2 types of boards and commissions: decision-making and advisory boards. And the Arts Commission being an advisory board, what does that really mean? Well, it's what it sounds like. You're advising the city council on recommendations, ideas. You're the eyes and ears for the arts community, and being really familiar with also the legal authorizations that's been given to your board through your ordinance. That's what the city council has authorized for the Arts Commission, your authority, and then your bylaws, which is your governing document that I know you just recently updated your bylaws, but you're welcome to update those and make them relevant to represent the work that you do. And then that goes before council and they approve, they review it, and then they will approve that. And those are two important documents to keep in mind if you didn't know where how those dots connected, because that's your scope. And so just being really familiar with that. And for example, in your bylaws, it has in there that part of your main duties is that you give an annual presentation to council. And I think that's really, if I could just say one thing, I think that's a great project to think about year round. Like what, when do you want to go before city council? What do you want to share with them? Do you want to share some early ideas, or do you want to do more of a report out of what you've done, or is it a combination? What's the best timing? What type of feedback do you want to hear from them? So, you know, that's something to think about in this retreat. Like what makes the most sense for you to have that communication? It's a more formal communication with council. You can also go anytime during visitor comment period and give your 2 cents. They love to hear from you. I know if you haven't heard councilors and the mayor talk about it, you know, most of them came from a city board or commission, and they really rely on you to give them the pulse. And so they love it when you come and you give some feedback, and you're the feedback loop to community, because they can't go out and see all 100,000 people. So you guys are really a huge piece to helping them just know what's going on out there, and what other ways can they be doing and thinking about the work that they're doing, because every year they put together their council priorities, and then they approve the city's budget. And we are now a strong form of city manager government. So, you know, we also are getting used to that new form of government. For those of you that have been around for a while, you've seen things change quite a bit. And if you're fairly new, then you're like, this is how it's always been. Yeah. But we've definitely been, you know, I think that just know that is definitely a big change that the city went through, and the city manager oversees, you know, the city staff, and so we have to make sure we operate within the budget. You know, budget resources are tight, and so we have to make sure that we don't overpromise on ideas. And so your staff liaison is your amazing person to work with on, you know, figuring out like what do we have available to us, what kind of ideas, and she's going to give you that reality check. What's doable? What's something that might have to be a 2 or 3 year idea, sketching out plan. And I also would just say too that I get asked a lot by boards and commissions, tell me a little bit more about the relationship of the staff liaison to the board. And since it's probably a little awkward for you to like dive right into that, I thought I would just share a few of those details.
Sure.
So, you know, we really do view staff liaisons as your go-to person to help you accomplish your goals, but they're not to do the work. So you really are doing the research, putting together your projects and whatnot. But your staff liaison is going to really help you with all your information gathering and how you're putting recommendations together for council's consideration. She's going to be able to tell you all the optics, all the constraints that are under all the things that you might not see so clearly from the outside. She's going to be your go-to person, but she does not work for or at the direction of the board itself. And so I just wanted to mention that, because I think sometimes we don't talk about some of those nuts and bolts. And we're also, one thing I love about our city is that we have council liaisons. Most cities that I've talked to, they don't have that on their advisory boards. So you also have a council liaison also on your team. That's somewhat unusual. So just also wanting to acknowledge that you have that feedback loop, but your council liaison is not providing direction to the board itself. So she's there as a resource in that feedback loop. And so I think those were kind of my main like nuts and bolts of what I wanted to share. And then other boards, you might wonder what are other boards and commissions that are advisory? What are they doing? Sometimes it's not just events and it's not just, recommending some research recommendations. I'll give one example. On the staff liaison to the Beaverton Committee for Community Involvement, and we, the board members were hearing from the neighborhoods about traffic calming, that they were hoping to see some changes to help improve livability. And so the BCCI then spent the last year going out into the neighborhoods, asking for feedback, taking that information and compiling it for the traffic commission. So the traffic commission would know, here's what these 11 neighborhoods had to say, their thoughts and ideas, and also their recommendations of what would make sense. And so they made that a priority to be that feedback loop from the neighborhoods to the traffic commission, so that the traffic commission could then make some changes to a traffic calming program that hadn't really seen any major updates in quite a long time. And then there's some very notable other advisory boards that you probably have experienced the product of their work. The Diversity Advisory Board, they had the idea that what if we brought a night market to the city? What would that look like? And I like mentioning this idea because now it's like, oh, this is just this is an annual tradition of making sure we all go there and get those delicious. I have some of my favorite food that I always make sure I get. But I would say that it took some time to make sure that the resources could be put together to fund that, because obviously it had staff impact, it had other city program impact. So you had to make sure that that got in through the budget system, and we run on a fiscal year, which is July 1st through June 30th of the calendar year. So we've already submitted this a month and a half ago, the budget for July of 2023 through June of 2024. Did I say that right?
Yes.
So you might have an incredible, amazing idea, but also know that your staff liaison is going to help work with you on like, okay, how do we time this with getting the request made to make sure that the resources could be set up to make that project or idea happen. So that's just a high level. I hope that's helpful. If this might be a good time to take questions.
Yeah, if any of you have questions, unmute yourself or raise your hand if you can, if you have questions.
We're also right at the
Yeah.
time.
Okay. Well,
yeah, if you so I think if you do have a question, enter it in the chat and we can circle back to it so that we kind of stay on agenda. I also just wanted to say as a follow-up to Lanny's comments about the budget cycle. So we have our kind of standard budget cycle, and then we have what we call our supplemental budget. And so, for instance, we've already submitted our budget for the next fiscal year. But if we had, for instance, like something that had a lot of traction that we really wanted to do as a commission, that we were really ready to, move forward, and we had a budget in mind, that I could take as a supplemental budget request. So I just want to enter that. Whether we get it or not, totally different story, but it's not there are kind of mid-year opportunities for us to make budget requests. And I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that. Okay, so Lynn, I don't know if I'm going to try to do this poll question number 2 and not take too much time with it, but can everybody see the poll?
Yeah, it's doing the same thing. Hold on a second. Let me try something.
Okay.
Let me see if I can do this
It's
again.
working.
I know.
There we go.
Here we go. All right. Yay. Thank you, Lynn. man, Hood River and Bend are neck and neck.
It's not,
Bend where?
it's working for you guys. It's not working for me. I promise to be the tiebreaker if there's a tie.
All right, has everybody had a chance to weigh in? Okay, all right, that's pretty cool. Like Bend and Ashland seem to be the top choices, but it's a pretty even spread, I would say. Lynn, what would your vote be if you could cast one?
Bend.
Bend? I think I'm probably Bend or Astoria. Split. I'm very, very much split. Okay. So we're going to end that poll. And then our next item on our agenda for this retreat, we have an amazing guest presenter here, and I'm just going to introduce Dr. Jeromy Koffler. And Jeromy is the Vice President of Student Activities at University of Portland, and has been serving as an advisor to student governments since 1994. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Koffler, and he is going to speak to us about parliamentary procedure, meeting facilitation, Robert's Rules of Order, kind of official business. How do we make our meetings great? So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Koffler. And thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. I really appreciate the opportunity. And I'm honored to be invited to speak with you today. As Laura mentioned, I have had some good experience working with the student governments in college campuses for pretty much my entire career. So I'm going to draw upon my experience with that today to share with you some basics. And so let's get right into it. With our brief time today, I have a little bit of an ambitious agenda, but here's what I'm hoping to cover. I will do my best to introduce the purpose of Robert's Rules of Order and the guiding principles of parliamentary procedure. We'll cover the basic architecture of an official meeting that uses this structure and the important leadership role of the chairperson. I will introduce a variety of motions that can be made and spend some time presenting on the difference between discussion and debate. I will also cover the basic ground rules for debate and give a short overview of voting options. And at the end, of course, I'll take some questions and hopefully give you the opportunity to put to practice what you've learned. Robert's Rules of Order was first published in 1876 by U.S. Army Brigadier General Henry Martin Robert, who was inspired to document the basic rules and procedures for conducting an official meeting after attending a particularly chaotic church assembly. So that was the inspiration. His ideas came from the customs and practices of both the British Parliament and the U.S. House of Representatives. Robert's initial goal was simply to provide order by setting up a sustainable democratic structure for meetings so that organizers could ensure that there was some sense of decorum when consensus could not be built. So let's dive right in here with the architecture of a meeting, a typical meeting. Robert set the standards for meetings where official business is being conducted. On this slide are the basic components for such meetings. The agenda items in bold are items that I have noticed that you use regularly with the commission. The chairperson calls the meeting to order. There is a roll call to establish quorum. There is a space for public comment and for business. And of course, the meeting is officially adjourned when the business has been concluded. The italicized items here are also common for meetings run with Robert's Rules and would have typically their own place on the agenda. Now, I understand that the commission may have some opening activities like our polls today to build relationships, and that the approval of the minutes is typically folded into the business item of your meeting. But other groups may also include officer or committee reports and may deliberate on, be deliberate in separating out old or unfinished business from new business. So now that we know the basic format of an official meeting, it is good to understand the guiding principles behind using parliamentary procedures at your meetings. Why do we do this? Within Robert's rules, it is made clear that all voting members have equal rights, privileges, and obligations. So really, this is a way to make sure that each person is respected and each person is heard. A quorum must be present for the group to conduct business. I read recently in your bylaws that you must have a simple majority of members to be able to be present to establish quorum. And so if for some reason quorum could not be established because less than a majority of you were able to attend a meeting, no official business could be conducted. Only announcements could be made before the group would disband and reschedule. And that really protects the rights of somebody who's not present to ensure that there is a majority of people who are there making decisions. As an arbiter of the process, the chairperson should always remain impartial when it comes to the business of the meeting. We will talk more about the role of the chairperson shortly, but they will work to ensure free and full discussion of each topic, calling on one person at a time to take the floor to speak. They will also ensure that the group is considering only one question at a time or one topic at a time, not conflating two or more ideas that may confuse people who are voting. To that end, it is important that before a vote is taken, that the chairperson will restate the motion at hand. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the chairperson. After the roll call, it's really important that the chairperson declares for the minutes that a quorum has been established. Often the person taking meeting minutes will document that for the record, who was present and who was not. The chairperson will also follow the agenda and be very clear with the group which item the group is addressing on the agenda so that everyone can follow along appropriately. The chairperson will recognize speakers and maintain order. Now, I'm not sure, of course, in this Zoom environment, if you're using a gavel or not, but the purpose of a gavel is to maintain order by capturing or recapturing the attention of the group so that only one person is speaking at a time. And there are other methods to use that the chair can use other than a gavel, but that is the traditional tool. The chairperson's role is to also ensure that the group is staying on topic and to keep the process flowing forward, putting motions to a vote, announcing the results, and so on. Now, the chairperson is traditionally not allowed to debate on a topic. If they would like to participate in the debate, they must relinquish their role for that item of business to the vice chair. And traditionally, the chairpersons would only vote to break a tie. Unless the group is smaller than 12, then it's considered common practice for the chairperson to actually cast a vote. And those are typically in subcommittee meetings. Okay, so now we know that the prominent role that the chairperson plays. Let's talk in more detail about how members get involved and how decisions get made. This is really the meat of, I think, of why I was invited here today. When a particular topic or agenda item in business is introduced, the chairperson will often declare that the body is in discussion. In discussion is a signal to the group that members can be called upon to speak and make comment on that topic. Discussion is pretty open, it's free-flowing. Members can present information, they can ask clarifying questions, share constituent concerns, and even ask for a straw poll on a particular idea. But the rules for engagement shift once a motion is introduced into the record and the chairperson recognizes a second. For example, a person might say something like this. I move to appropriate funds. For example, actually, let me start over with that. To move to, let's say they want to move to appropriate funds to a particular project or event. So it might sound like this. I moved that the Arts Commission allocate $1,000 to sponsor a float in the annual Beaverton Arts Parade to be held on April 1st, 2022. Something like that. Notice that the motion that I gave as an example was very specific, so that everyone's clear about what the proposal is, and so that when the motion is being debated, it's clear what people are debating. So the chairperson would recognize that proposal by restating it and then ask the commission for a second. Any member at that point can verbally give a second by just saying, I second. And if the chair recognizes both the motion and the second, that means that there's at least two people that would like to consider the proposal, and the discussion then moves into debate. That's that transition point. Once in debate, the rules for engagement are different. They're a little more restricted. And they're restricted specifically to arguments for the proposal and arguments against the proposal. And these arguments are often entertained in an alternating way. So the chair might say, I'd like to entertain an argument for this proposal. Someone would then be called upon, make statements on why they think that the proposal should be approved or pass. And then the chair might say, okay, I'd like to entertain arguments against. And then someone might stand up and then argue maybe on the opposite side. This will continue back and forth, arguments for, arguments against, arguments for, arguments against, until the chair feels that it's appropriate, that the topic has been appropriately exhausted and we're ready for a vote. And then they would call for a vote, which I'll talk about shortly. So although we don't have a lot of time today to go into all of these examples in much depth, it is important to know that there are several different types of motions. All of them represent different types of decisions. The motion that I gave in the last example was really a main motion. It was a primary piece of information or a proposal that was put before the commission for a decision to be made. But there could be a way in which someone might want to amend that proposal or change it in some way. And so then that would be debated. A member could also decide to table a motion for either a specified amount of time, until the next meeting or until next month, or for an indefinite period of time, which would of course potentially kill the motion. A member could also call previous question. Now, previous question is basically a strategy that someone might have to end debate. They're like, this is dragging on too long. The chair hasn't called for a vote yet. I call previous question because I'd like to see us just, end debate on this and make a vote. And so that's a very deliberate way of doing that. And again, there's lots of different types of motions, lots of different types of decisions that can be made within Robert's rules. Now, the rules for debate. It's really important that these rules are followed by all members of the commission and arbitrated by the chair. So really, the idea here, again, is that no member can speak unless they're recognized by the chair and that they speak in sequence, one after another. Now, there are some very rare ways in which people can interrupt someone who is speaking. And I've given you a couple examples on this slide. One is called point of information. So point of information is sometimes misinterpreted as a way to interrupt someone to ask them a question. But really, a point of information is actually a way to clarify or correct a fact. So if someone said, we had 5 years of resources being put towards this project, someone could say point of information, it was actually 6 years. Something like that can be used to interrupt, because that way the fact that was stated by the person speaking would be corrected in the minutes. So that is one way to interrupt. Another way to interrupt is a point of order. Point of order, of course, is a way to point out to the chair that there's some sort of parliamentary procedure error that's going on. And again, I don't anticipate that you do that very often, but this would be a time maybe where discussion and debate is being confused, something like that. And then point of personal privilege is when somebody basically is asking to leave the meeting. So I might say I have point of personal privilege 5 minutes, or point of personal privilege indefinitely, which gives the signal to the chair that I'm leaving the meeting and I'm not coming back, which changes, of course, the calculus around the quorum and could potentially end the meeting early if people had to leave early on the too many people on the point of personal privilege. So those are some basic ways of interrupting. I don't anticipate that you're going to have to do that very often. So really the rule is, again, that people speak in sequence so that everyone can listen clearly to what the person has to say. The next rule here is also should be pretty obvious, but all arguments must be relevant to the proposal at hand. So this is really important so that everyone can be tracking the conversation and understanding kind of the pros and cons of whether or not the proposal should be approved. Sometimes I will actually recommend that people use a piece of scratch paper, draw a line down the middle and write pro and con, and then just kind of take notes on the arguments as they're being discussed, so that you can keep track of all the different ideas before you make a vote. One thing that also is important is that all remarks must be addressed to the chair. So while we talk about parliamentary procedure as being in debate, and we are actually, looking at both sides of an issue, we're not actually debating each other, we're debating the idea. And so the idea is addressed to the chair. Is this idea or this proposal, does it have merit? Does it not have merit? And so that really helps us remain kind of a civil body and remain, with some semblance of decorum. And then, of course, like I said earlier, when possible, the chair should alternate between those speaking in support and opposition. This guarantees balanced time between the two perspectives. And then there are some optional limits that some people in these types of meetings will add to their parliamentary procedure. Again, just to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak and that people are not taking up too much of the time, scarce amount of time that you have allotted in your meetings. Okay, finally, voting. Now, voting really depends on your bylaws and how things work within your commission. Most motions that will come before the body will most likely be approved by a majority vote. However, there are some financial issues or procedural issues that might require 2/3, and we don't really have time to go into all of those today, but if there are questions, there are definitely guides all over the internet written about what those look like, and so we can go into that at a later date if necessary. There are several methods for voting. The most common voting is just a voice vote. The chairperson would say, all in favor, please say aye. And all opposed, please say nay, in order to record those votes. Another way of doing that is a show of hands or a standing. You can also, on Zoom, you can have votes in the chat if you prefer to do it that way. Now, I believe your bylaws basically do not allow secret ballot because you are a public commission. So, but there are times when you might use an actual paper ballot. Because you might have, a chance to collect those votes in person somehow. And finally, a roll call vote. Roll call vote is where it is important enough decision that we have all of the commissioners on record of what their position was on a particular motion, because the person taking minutes is going to record that information. A roll call vote does not happen very often, but it happens in times where the chair might call for a voice vote and it sounds like the ayes and the nays are about the same, and someone calls division, they're like division, and then you'd move to a roll call vote to clarify the number of people who voted pro and con. Finally, the last thing I'll say before I open it up to questions is just a little commentary on abstentions. Abstentions are generally inappropriate, other than times in which the decision that's at hand is something that would personally benefit you as a commissioner. So if you are voting, you should be voting aye or nay and not abstaining unless there is a conflict of interest or something that is going on where you know you would personally benefit from the outcome of that decision. So I'm going to leave it at that. Looks like I stayed on time.
Okay, thank you, Jeromy.
Exactly.
I do have one question about the abstentions. And that is, if someone doesn't understand the topic in some way, and no amount of discussion gets them to where they feel comfortable with voting, is that another reason to abstain?
No, Lynn, it really isn't, because we want to make sure that the motions that we're putting before the commission are clear and understandable for everyone.
Okay.
I would actually recommend in those cases that the motion be tabled.
Okay.
And set aside for a period of time so that the group can go back to discussion.
Okay.
And talk it out. Abstentions are not maybes.
Okay.
That's I think something that sometimes people get confused about. They're like, well, I don't really know which way to vote, so I'm not going to vote at all.
Okay.
And really, that abstention should not be used in that way.
Okay. And Sharon?
Just a quick thing. So if we are making a motion to approve minutes and somebody was absent, is that an abstention?
No, if
It's
they're
a
not,
non-vote?
yeah, it's a non-vote. They weren't there to vote because they were absent. And you established quorum because you had a majority of people present. So I think, do you have a commission of 15? Is that right? 15 members?
I think it's
15 with the 2 alternates.
That's true. Okay, I forgot about the
Okay.
alternate.
So as long as you had 9 people present to approve the minutes, then your vote would be, 9-0, 5-4, 7-2, and that's how you would record it. Everybody else who was not present would not have gotten a chance to vote.
So you just sit on your hand. Okay, and then the other thing I saw in your presentation is that you referred to friendly amendment. I brought that up at the city recorder's, she does a training for minutes. And when I mentioned friendly amendment, she almost came right out of her seat. That wasn't something any longer. I've used that a lot, but you had it in your notes.
Yeah, so a friendly amendment is definitely something that I would use very sparingly. And typically what a friendly amendment does is it modifies an amendment very slightly. So you could say in my example, I move that we allocate money to this parade on this date. And someone would say, I'd like to friendly amend that to this other date because that's the actual date of the event, right?
Right.
So something like that needs to be accepted by the person who made the motion and the person who seconded it. If those 2 people agree to the friendly amendment, the amendment is friendly amended and you proceed into discussion on that amended, friendly amended motion.
Okay, thank you.
But again, it should be very slight, like these kinds of things are, oopsie corrections, not like, oh, I'd like to friendly amend this to be $1,500 instead of $1,000. No, that should be a full amendment and should be debated.
So if it's substantive.
Yep.
Yeah, you do it. Okay, got it.
Correct.
Great. Any other questions for Jeromy?
I have one, which is actually on the abstention again. I got a little more confused when Sharon asked. If we had quorum at the previous meeting and they weren't in attendance at that, and now we're voting to approve at the next meeting, if they had been absent for the meeting that those minutes were taking place. So do they not, is it a non-vote, or are they still voting to approve or deny?
No, in that case, they are approving even though they were not in attendance, because they should have access to those minutes before the meeting. They should have a chance to review them, to ask any questions for clarification, to basically understand the business of the meeting they missed. So they should be informed enough to be able to vote to approve the minutes or not.
Got it. Thank you.
Great.
Jeromy, I did just enter something in the chat. One of our commissioners asked if we could have access to the PowerPoint that you just presented so that they could have it for future reference. Is that possible?
Yes, of course. I'd be happy to email it to Laura after this meeting and share it with you. I'm also happy to, speak offline with anybody who wants additional clarification.
Great.
I know we're about out of time.
Yeah, if no more, does anyone have any more questions? If not, then we can take a break here for it looks like about 10 minutes. So rejoining at 6:15. And then we will take another interactive poll, and we'll be moving forward on some planning, reviewing of goals and so forth. Thank you, Jeromy, for joining us. Oh, Jim, did you have a question?
Yeah, you just brought the polls. What was the results from the first poll? We didn't get those results.
Oh,
They were entered in the chat because the first poll wasn't working. So if you scroll up in the chat.
Jim, I will throw you a bone and say that if we have time at the end, we can try it again and see how that goes. So time willing, we'll do it. Okay.
Or you can put the poll up during the break.
Yeah, I could do that. Let's do that. I'm going to put the poll up during the break, and then should you want to? Oh, I already launched this, so I don't know if it's going to allow me to launch it again.
Okay.
well, there's Ryan. You changed locations.
All right, well, I lied. You're not going to get to do the poll number 1 again, but that's okay because we have 3 more. So we'll, plenty of questions to answer tonight. So go take a break and we'll reconvene in about 12 minutes. Could be your icebreaker.
The poll just popped up. Interactive.
Oh, yay. Okay.
Yeah.
That was me.
Thank you.
Let's do this.
Okay, back at 6:15, and anyone who wants to do the poll, it's up there awaiting your votes.
Hi, Sarah's child.
Laura, I'm going to go ahead and jump off and I'll email you the PowerPoint.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jeromy.
Jeromy.
Yes,
Thank you. That was very good.
Hey, Laura, I just had a quick question. I'm on here as doing poll number 4, and I have no idea how to do that or what I'm doing that.
Yeah, it was mostly just so you could introduce it. That's all. And then I can load it up here.
Okay, cool. I was like,
give you some small task.
Okay, good. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
You're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Tell me.
Yeah.
Okay, it is 6:15. Hopefully people are getting back to their chairs. I'm sharing my screen so you can see the results of the poll here. Can everybody see that? Looks like a pretty even split between producer, director, actor, and extra. So anyway,
Several people want to be in charge.
I guess so.
That's good. A power hungry group we got here.
So, all right, next item on the agenda here is to, we're going to do poll number 3. Ryan, are you there and ready for that? Or do you want me to do it?
We're gonna get there, hang on.
Are we muted? Oh, no, I'm not muted. Okay. Sorry, I'm can't see if I'm muted or not. So this poll is kind of figuring out what we're doing on the weekend type of stuff, off hours, you know, so which one of the following activities would you choose to participate in if you had a Friday night and or weekend day free? I don't know what that's like actually, but these are pretty great examples. So as you guys enter those in, I gotta figure out what I'm doing too. Wow, music performance on the lead.
A lot of music lovers.
Thank you.
Would be followed by dancing and art.
And food.
Food is always winning.
All right, everybody have enough time? Yeah,
All right.
okay. So I'm gonna end the poll. Thank you for being such good sports about the polls.
Awesome. Did you share the results with everyone?
I think they saw them.
Oh, did you?
Oh.
Did you guys see the results?
Here, can you see them now?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
There you go.
So it looks like music performances win, closely followed by some dancing and food, and then art, and then we got some poetry slammers, and then film. Oh, it's funny. Film's like much further down than I would have expected. And then we got the smart people with the TED Talks and book clubs. So.
Excellent. So the next item on the agenda here is Ryan Hendricks, who is going to talk to us about reflections on 2021, and we'll talk about that. So I'll hand this off to Ryan.
Yeah, so before I take the floor, I'm going to give it back to Laura because she wanted to introduce a couple of things before I get rolling.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say that Counselor Hassan sent a message. She sent her regrets that she was not able to attend. She was traveling back from Seattle and just didn't really feel like she could make it in time. And so she wanted me to pass along a message to you all. And just as we start to think about, we start to reflect on what we have been able to accomplish, or what goals we have achieved in the last year, and then what we want to do in 2022. So she says, thank you for volunteering your time with the Arts Commission. Our volunteers shape how we go about making an impact on our community, and each of you bring a valuable perspective. As you go into your retreat, I encourage you to review data on Beaverton residents. We know that our city represents about 50-50 renters versus homeowners. We know many families are rent burdened, and in the Beaverton School District in 2019, 36% of our students were on free and reduced lunch. I share this data as I always want us to keep our most impacted communities in mind as we make plans for art and additional opportunities. We are about 72% white, 16% Latino, 13% Asian, 6% 2 or more races, and 2% Black. 20% of residents are foreign-born, and the median household income sits at $77,000, while approximately 10% of our families are in poverty, and this is all based on the census data. As you know, our councils set priorities that will guide the work of the city via the direction and leadership of the city manager, Jenny Hariyama. Feel free to reference those as you go into planning, and I've included those priorities in your packet, so you can take a peek at those. I wish I could be with you, but the timing just didn't work. Thank you again for all you do. So I just wanted to pass that message along before we get started. So I'm going to turn it back to Ryan.
I'm going to share my screen now so that everyone can see. Going. So there we go. So I'm going to move some things around. I'm not going to be able to see you guys while I'm talking. So be verbal if you need me to stop or speak up.
I'll keep an eye on it too.
Yeah, awesome. So basically, I wanted to take an opportunity to kind of walk through, kind of remind everyone what we did during our last retreat, and then open up the floor and start brainstorming about where to go from here, right? So we're going to talk about what we did. We'll take a straw poll, and then we'll open up and start brainstorming. And then I have some homework for you guys. And you can kind of see my agenda on the right-hand side of the screen underneath all the pages and stuff over here. So you can kind of follow along. So if you think I'm droning on, you can tell me to hurry up. I'm lagging behind here. So but if you bear with me as I'm going through, kind of like reminding people, feel free to pop in and correct me if I'm mistaken. You guys all have the information in your binders. It is the kind of purplish tab towards the top is basically what I'm reviewing. And we'll go from there. So kind of the things that we covered last year kind of boiled down into these kind of categories, right? So advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion. We talked about community outreach and connections. We had lots of topics around that. We had topics around relationship with the city of Beaverton and the arts program, how to like strengthen it and understand our roles better. We had conversations about discrete project ideas, like very specific ones. We talked about long-term overarching visions and goals, and we talked about like process stuff. How do we get stuff done and subcommittees and things like that. If you guys are following along, each one of these topics is actually a slide in one of the sheets, and you guys can kind of go through, and I'm just gonna kind of hop through a lot of them. The first one I just wanted to touch base on is we also took a moment to identify what was working well, right? And there was a lot of great things that I assume are still about the same because we only had it a few months ago, but we had great enthusiasm, people were collaborating, everyone was committed and everyone was talented. I'm just pulling out some highlights. We had some creative problem solving challenges that we had because of COVID that we did. We were talking about how well we do Zoom, and despite today, we're always learning something. So I think everyone kind of rolls with those punches and is looking forward to meeting in person soon. But everyone has been so flexible, and I think we're still doing that well. And then, just sort of general work that we do day in, day out that we did well. We administrated the 1% for the arts with the PMCA opening and all those art pieces and all that sort of stuff we talked about. And we talked about going forward, sorry, my screen's blurry. And then us providing adequate feedback to the city so that the city knew kind of like where we wanted to go. And then we were always helping each other succeed. on the themes, you know, just a little bit. I'm just going to dig in a little bit. I'm not going to read all these because you guys have them all, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. And I just wanted for reference for the activity later. But we talked about increasing our diversity and inclusion efforts and highlighting perspectives in the art, and enhancing the diversity on the commission, you know, physically and in our programming. We talked about the development of some sort of community artwork around diversity, and we had some great, strong conversations about how to include diversity, equity, inclusion with the things we do. And one of the outcomes from that was actually including it in a subcommittee, which was great. And then one of the other things was the community outreach and connections. There was a lot of desire to seek collaboration and cooperation with arts commissioners and other jurisdictions where appropriate. There was a strong sense of, hey, we got to connect to other city entities like NACS and the other commissions and councils, and this desire to like reconnect, because which I assume was because we're so siloed because of the Zoom and all that wonderful jazz. And everyone wanted to plan an outreach and begin getting out there again. So sorry. Relationships with the city of Beaverton. There was a strong desire to form a more active advisory relationship rather than just responsive. Have an active involvement in the direction of the arts program moving forward as normalcy returns. Again, this strong desire last year to and looking forward to the normality of actually seeing people and being involved in events. And it was great having the PRCA open. It was nice to see people I haven't seen in 2 years in reality. And to stay in touch with the city's current goals so that we can brainstorm ways that the arts can help. I just wanted to pause here real quick because I will bring this up later. In your folders, you got the City of Beaverton strategic outcome areas. Those are always good to review. And then we also, the arts program, the next page, you'll see our values that we've developed and our key roles and all that sort of stuff that I believe Laura went through when I was in
the internet free zone.
Yeah, the internet free zone, I guess. And then we had a bunch of very specific project ideas that came out of it, such as music events and creating the Beaverton Arts Commission Awards, the Youth Awards, integrating music into the plans, deepening an understanding of our public art program that we have and how to engage it further, creating performing arts events, advising programs, right? And general programs that help our artists. And then we got into kind of like, we categorized some of those very specific goals into longer term goals that we could reach in a year or two. And there's a strong desire to be a resource for artists in the area, to be the people that people come to for help, to be known as an active and visible supporter of the arts, and explore ways in which to help organizations operationalize our mission and vision. So like we have all these statements and things like that. What are we doing to put it into action? Type of stuff. And then we got into like the boring nuts and bolts of things, which are important, so like having meetings, people stating that they wanted them to be more productive, have goal-oriented, have plans and timelines, and have specific goals and make progress towards those goals, develop more lateral versus top-down structure, so that there's more voices and not just people speaking towards people like I'm doing right now. And then create ways for the commission members to help at events involving involvement with planning, more personal involvement and as committee members, especially this year's members do not know each other due to COVID, so again, that desire to re-engage into active events that we put on. And then we were kind of subcommittee-less at that moment, so we needed to determine the subcommittees and who was serving on them, revisit which ones we were doing and what we had, and we ended up with, I forgot this slide, but we ended up with the grants, diversity, equity, inclusion subcommittee, the youth arts award subcommittee, and the public art subcommittee. Right?
That's it.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And then we would reevaluate subcommittees as needed. And so we did all that, and then Carly, sorry, I've got all these things in my way. Trying to move this down, move this over. Okay. Carly helped us. We did this dot exercise program, right, where we got all these things and we started putting all these images all over the place. And I'm as visual as the next guy, but I'm also very analytical. So I took that and put it into a chart. As I do, man, it's very delayed. Yeah, sorry.
Lag, huh?
Yeah, huge. Sorry, I got distracted. My ADHD got better at me there. So I basically took all those things that we did in the dot exercise and I listed them here and I prioritized them, right? So based on the number of stars or dots that we did. And so like the largest one was actually create, support an art walk that highlights all public art in our city, maybe a brochure, type of thing. The next one was actually discuss deepening our understanding of public art, quickly followed by a bunch of ties with advancing DEI, developing a youth arts award recognition, advocating for long-term promotion of arts business in Beaverton, and then we follow that up with support more outdoor music events and concerts like the Round used to have, and then, I missed another 8, I'm sorry, community outreach. And then we got into be front and center in helping and promoting the building of enthusiasm in the arts and coordination of the nearing of the opening of the Arts Center. And then performing arts events advising programs that help artists. And that's kind of like where we ended up with our priorities. And so I tried to cram in a lot there so that we had a lot of time to talk. Hopefully I was able to do that. But what I want to do right now, before we open it up for discussion, is actually take a poll so that we can take these goals that we talked about last year and we can self-assess in those polls whether or not we've done them. So I'll let Laura actually open them up because I don't think I can. Oh, I got poll access now. Okay. Yeah, sure. Maybe I'll do it. Let's see. Oh no, I don't have polls in.
I don't know what the heck is going on with this. Can you stop sharing your screen for a second?
Stop share. Maybe it's a share thing. Sorry guys, technical fun.
Oh, here we go. Okay, sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, y'all. Okay. So there's a lot of questions here. So in terms of looking at the 2021 goals, and we have each of these that Ryan just went through in that grid, in that matrix. So on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being we did really poorly, 5 being like we knocked it out of the park. Respond to each of these goals / priorities with how do you think we did in the last year?
Anyone have any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
This is Halia. So all of these items have been completed and are currently in motion. Is that correct?
That is what this poll is asking. You know, it's actually a straw poll to feel, get a feel on how the commissioners feel that we did on our goals last year, whether we completed them or not. Right. And so basically, one would be haven't even started working.
Okay.
And then like the 3 would be, oh yeah, like the 2 to like 4, I guess would be the, yeah, we're in motion, you know, we're somewhere just starting or we're getting pretty close to the end, but we're not quite there yet. And the 5 is kind of like, oh yeah, we're solid, we accomplished that goal.
Got it.
So
So
Ryan,
as someone who's new, and if I don't have awareness of where in the pipeline or progress these items are at, what would you recommend?
I would choose one.
I would choose one because your perspective is important, whether you were on the commission or not.
Okay.
If you were unaware that something was happening, that's important to know, right? Or if you knew something was happening, or that we actually did something, you know, that's good to know as well, right? Because part of our goals is that community outreach, and if you didn't know what was going on, we probably weren't doing any outreach, you know. So
I guess in the future it might be helpful to have like a not applicable or something to that effect, to where it won't, you know, sway the results, because, you know, I can't, I'm not going to respond one to everything because I'm aware of some things, but that could be swaying the results too, just to make note.
yep, for sure.
We were working with tools that wouldn't and couldn't really do all the things that we wanted to do in a poll.
Got it.
Yeah, we did the best we could. And I think that we obviously have several new members who are probably in the same boat as you, Halia, where they don't really know, like, did we do this? I don't know, maybe before I joined. And I think, so there's gonna be some skewing, but there's also a lot of commissioners who were here. And so I think we'll be kind of like get a sense of where that skew is and looking at the poll results.
Great. So just to recap, if we have no awareness about it, or if we personally, like for the example, the first question, the art walk, I was reading it thinking that would be a great idea. We should absolutely do that. Not realizing that it's something that's already been implemented. So I guess I would put a 1 for that, just not having participated or experienced the art walk.
No, that's fair.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
How are y'all doing? Do you feel like you need more time? I know there's a lot of questions, and this is actually just the first part. I had to split it into 2 polls because it'll only allow me to ask 10 questions. So yeah, there's going to be 2 questions in the next poll.
Just an observation. I think that some of these questions, given the limitations of what we've all been going through for the last few years, it might not be the fairest thing. And ultimately, what's important is how we rank what we want to do moving forward with the exact same questions.
Yeah. Once the poll is done, that's a topic of conversation.
Yeah.
I also want to say, what art walk? As the public arts chair, there was no art walk, so why are we even talking about it? Really was,
because it was a goal from last year. So
okay, but it was
a recorded goal from last year. Whether we
it's a non, yeah. It's
I mean,
because it didn't happen.
Yeah. However, I feel like there is a city brochure. There's not a full one for the whole collection because we were waiting for the Reeser artworks to go in. We did do a brochure for the Reeser for the public artworks there. So it's sort of like, that's kind of a 2-part question, because art walk is one thing, brochure, downloadable PDF is another. And I do think that we made progress on that. So I wouldn't, in my opinion, I wouldn't say that it's 1. I think we did do work. Did we realize art walk? No, that didn't happen.
No, because
I'm confused on that one too. I'm going to tell you right now, I put a 1 because if you're talking about Karen D. Benedetti and the work that she's done and the research, that's one thing, but I didn't equate that question with that.
So I think it's important that we actually finish the poll and then open it up for conversation.
Sure.
There's going to be these things, right? Because we created these goals, right? And everyone has a different understanding of where we are. And so we want people to input that information and then we'll talk about it. And then we'll get through the poll and then we'll have a open discussion. That's the next thing that we're doing. So like, just because you answer something in here, it's not set in stone. You're not grading yourself. It's not going to be on your permanent record. But you know, it's just a conversation starter so that we can have those conversations.
okay, we have 20 minutes.
Okay, so does everybody feel like they've had enough time to complete this part?
We got 11 respondents.
Yeah,
Anyone need more time?
Just for a heads up, I can't vote. Like it doesn't allow
you're
me
an
to.
analyst.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay.
So just heads up.
So we'll correct it. It's a conversation starter, and then in the notes I'll get your feedback.
Okay, so I'm gonna end this poll. And share the results. So create, support an art walk that highlights all the public art in our city, brochure, downloadable PDF. So overwhelmingly 58% won, 25% was 2, 17% 3. So we have a lot of work to do on that. And I think, you know, coming out of COVID is part of that. To develop a recognition program for young high school level artists based in specific categories of art, create Beaverton Arts Commission awards. So it looks like we have a lot of folks responding as a 3. And then the rest is sort of like, it's a mixed bag beyond that. So
yeah, I think that's fair. Because, you know, we're in process. We actually haven't given an award yet. But we're getting there. So you guys can all see and like scroll through these results, right? Yourselves. Right? Because I don't want to take up a lot of time reading each one.
yeah,
Right.
we don't need to, as long as they
Right,
can
so,
see them.
yeah.
I don't know if they can they? Yeah, I mean.
That's what I'm asking. I'm not getting.
Yeah.
Yes. You want me to share my screen and you can.
No. I'm
No.
asking if
We
everyone
can see it. We can see it.
We
Okay.
can see it. Just scroll down and you can.
That's
see
all
it.
I needed to know.
Okay.
So the next part of that discussion is you know, here, let me share my screen again. Are these results what you expected? And is there something in the response that's misleading to you? And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. I want to spend like 5 minutes, right? So if you feel like we talked a little bit about some of the unfair questions, which is great to pull out as we think about moving forward, right? But is there anything else that people have observed in these questions that are good or that need improvement or that wasn't quite fair?
April just said, can we have a little bit more time? She couldn't scroll down through all the questions. I don't know if we can relaunch the poll. I've already ended it.
Okay. It holds a record of the poll, right?
I think so, yeah.
There it is. Okay. Yeah, just share the results again.
Okay, so April, I'm sharing the results again for you to look at. I can't reopen the poll, but I can show the results.
No, that's fine. I was only at number 6 when it went away. So
Okay, yeah.
sorry.
Sorry about that. Anyone see anything that strikes them about the poll or that they wanted to comment or continue commenting about?
As a new member, I'm just kind of floored that you've gotten so much done in this time. So I just want to say bravo.
I think that's a good comment for people that have been on the commission, because you know, especially the people, you know, we've felt isolated and felt like, at least me, I haven't felt like that I've gotten stuff done, you know, so that's actually nice to hear. So
April, did you have enough time?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
anyone else have any comments about it before we go into moving forward?
And my only response was that I feel bad about how much we didn't get done, but at the same time, COVID was on our backs most of the way through.
Well,
And
you also have to remember we did this halfway through the year, right? So we
right,
had 6 months.
yeah. So we gave ourselves a little bit of time, and now we're judging ourselves on that. And I'm not saying we're judging, but reality is we didn't have time or latitude within the COVID regulations to do as much as we might have accomplished otherwise.
Again, a lot of these goals weren't meant to be done in 1 year, right? It's 1 to 2 to 3 years, right? And then our long-term goals are much longer than that, right? So just because it wasn't done this year isn't a judgment, right? It's just taking a moment to say, hey, where are we? And are we all on the same page? So
I feel like this is going to be, I mean, I think the next step in this is trying to, looking at the ones that have a lot of traction, and you know, gauging priority wise, we haven't done it, we haven't fully realized it, which ones do we want to really hone in on and work on this year, knowing that we're not going to be able to do all of them. That's just not possible. So I think that's probably the framing that I would give as we kind of go into goal setting for the next year. Really try to think about the things that are most important to put forward this next year.
Right, which is a good segue so I can't scroll my screen up any further, but if you look down towards the bottom, new goals and priorities, right? So
Before we step over there, Sharon has a question.
Oh, yep, where?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just have a very quick question because I might be getting my commissions and committees mixed up. In our main body of the BAC and our subcommittees as well, when we're taking notes and doing work, would it be helpful to do actionable items at the end of our minutes for the main body of what we do and for the subcommittees, because that spurs us on to actually doing the work?
Yes.
Yep, we do that construction every day.
Yep.
Yeah,
next steps.
Yeah, I'm on other committees and boards that is a given, and we do that. We have that in BCCI, we have that at the gallery, and it makes it so that it's real. It's not like kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, I was kind of, to add to what you're saying, is some of these are super broad, right? Like, so those can be broken down into, okay, here's our actionable items, but we're trying to meet a certain, in this year, like DEI is a massive thing. Integrating music is a massive thing. So is it a goal of, realistically, can we get one more of this for a concert, or one more that kind of makes it a little more concrete step?
Yeah.
Who's doing what by what time? You know, be very specific.
Yeah, you know, this is something Ryan and I were talking about, was exactly that, and prioritizing, right? So number one, prioritizing the things, you know, whatever we put on our list, if it's taking these up, adding new ones, or deleting some of these, whatever, prioritizing those, and then as we go, doing exactly what you're suggesting, Sharon, which is end the meeting with, what are our next steps? You know, things that we're going to work on, you know, and between now and our next meeting. And sometimes those things won't get done, and that's fine. But if we don't have those next steps, then there are no steps that people will take unless they really have, you know, take the initiative. So.
And so can I make
important.
a suggestion for consideration, not for decision, but that is that in our meetings, whether they be the main body or the subcommittees, that we assign a person who has that task of following the discussion, and it does not need to be the recorder. We typically have not had the recorder because they've got their hands full. That somebody who, and I as vice chair had done that in the past, not here, but to follow the thread and do your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and put it down, and those are your actionable items and they are codified in the minutes.
That actually leads me into the next part of what we're doing. So because we're short on time, I want to make sure that everyone has a voice in what we want to do from here, to kind of set our priorities and or whether it's setting the priority of a previous goal or setting new goals. I want everyone to take just a few minutes. I'll probably just say 2 minutes because I'm about 5 minutes behind where I want to be, or 10 minutes behind where I want to be. But take 2 minutes and in the chat so that we can record it. This is my sneaky way of recording. I want you to type for you a goal or aspiration that you see for the Beaverton Arts Commission over the next year or two. And when you write that goal or aspiration, it would be super helpful to indicate whether what strategic outcome or BAC value or key role that goal relates to, right? So keeping in mind our goals and values and why we're a commission. You have this aspiration goal, right? To so like for one, a goal, set action items and meeting minutes. That's a great example of one. And the value, I just set my binder down, but the value is committed to being visible and holding each other accountable, that type of stuff. If you guys can just take a moment, I'm going to shut up so you guys can hear your own thoughts. And I'll give you guys just a minute or two to record that in the chat, and then we'll open up for conversation for 5 or 10 minutes. And then I have an assignment. Again, remember, this is brainstorming for the next, we're setting ourselves up for the next one, kind of see where we are. So we have time between now and the next one to really talk about our priorities and our goals for next time. So we're not going to finish, just remember that this time, but we're going to set ourselves up so that we're moving in the right direction. So
I would just remind you that the strategic outcome areas, those are otherwise known as the priorities set by city council. That sheet is in your binder. So if you were to for instance, like you want to do a concert in the round, we'll just use that as an example. Take that idea or aspiration and then look at those strategic outcome areas and pick which of those strategic outcome areas that fits in, if it does.
Hi, this is Sarah Rohr. I think I misunderstood the directions. I put the ideas in the chat rather than the strategic.
No, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So you did like basically half of the task, which is great. So if you would go and look at those ideas and then overlay them with the strategic outcome areas and pick the strategic outcome areas that are relevant.
Do you have the strategic outcome areas in this deck that you're showing?
It's just in your binder.
It's in your binder, tab 2. And then 3 is our values specific to the commission. Of course, you're not being graded, and the important part is
this is purely like brainstorming.
What you want to do, and it's just brainstorming, and we're just taking a moment to do it in chat so that everyone has an opportunity to be heard, and I can record it, and we can work in the next session to incorporate those ideas.
I'd just like to say that this is very different from prior retreats, because we usually work as a board to come up with a mutual mission and that we build up our values together, and to have them already here is just kind of, I don't know, kind of disappointing.
Oh, well, these were values that were developed by the Arts Commission.
Yes, but we have new participants now. We have new commissioners, and I kind of feel like we should be all participating in that.
Okay. I mean, that's something that we can consider for the next session. It's not something that I don't think we really can do that justice today.
My screen stopped sharing.
I think the whole idea was to give us something to start with, which is where we left off last year, and then add to it or take away, or give us sort of a ground, a baseline to start from.
So, if you haven't finished putting it in the chat, feel free to keep working on that as we go on. A lot of my section of this was to review what we did last time and kind of prompt on kind of what we kind of spur on the thought of where we are, how we accomplished things, right? And so what I want to do now is set us up for next time. And I have something called SMART homework. And what I'm going to have you do, I'm going to send you home with a worksheet. Basically, it's not a huge worksheet, but it's to help us be specific in our goal keeping. And I'll go through this and then I'll reopen the floor. Basically, we want to be able to identify goals as a commission together that we want to achieve, but we wanted them to be specific, right? And if any of you have used, am I still sharing my screen?
Yeah.
I am. Okay, cool. I'm just not seeing it. So, okay, good. Yeah, you got me worried. So we have, and we want those goals to be measurable, some way of accounting for it. Like, so one of the things I heard from the goals from last year when we were reviewing them just now is some of these are very broad and very general. So we want to come up with measurable, specific goals. They need to be achievable goals, right? So we're not going to have a Led Zeppelin rock concert kind of, music on the Red Rocks, type of thing happening this year, right? But maybe there's something that we can do that's more achievable, of scale, and something that's realistic, things that are fiscally responsible, things that we can afford to do. And then things that are timely, right? And what I mean by that is not timely and, oh, this is the right time period, which it may be, but have a specific end date. We want to achieve this goal by X date, right? And so as we begin to think about what we did in the past and what each of us want to do in the future, we want to kind of think our way through that, right? So again, these are just some notes on what that is, and I'm going to send you guys home basically this template that you guys can use. And what I really want is each commissioner to bring at least one goal, but not 50 goals. You can do more than one, but I would really like to make sure that everyone is heard, and that everyone has a voice. So it'd be great for everyone to get a goal, and then I want you to email it to me, and I'll send out an email just reminding you a couple of times between now and the next session, and I'll send this template to you, and it's really just the same: specific, measurable, achievable. It gives some sort of questions, kind of primers and things like that. So, and I was really hoping to have at least 10 to 20 minutes to talk, but and kind of get the brainstorming flowing. But does anyone have any comments that they want to go through, or ideas that they want to expound on that they put in the chat, saw in the chat, or want to add to our conversation?
Just a quick note on time. We're just 1 minute away from the top of the hour.
I put something in the chat that I think aligns with DEI goals. I think it's achievable. I think it's smart. And I've seen the impact of it, which is the Beaverton Library it was like a holiday, maybe it was Valentine's Day or something, was hosting an art table in the kids section. And all the kids who were present had access to those supplies. And my own child commented how delightful it was to go to the library and have access to the supplies. And I saw that it was a mutual delight for all of these children who were engaged, and also their parents who were engaging with the tools that were available. I know that would have to be a partnership with the library, but it's something that feels achievable and attainable and would meet a DEI goal, because it really does. It's a space that's already providing itself as, accessible and inclusive space. And then you have these tools available for creative expression, creative therapeutic expression, creative whatever, and just make it available to kids. I know that there would probably want to be some stewarding, and there'd be someone that would be needing to take responsibility for cleaning and all those kind of technical details. But I think that's a achievable goal.
Great, thanks. And Sharon, you had a question?
I just want to piggyback onto what Sarah was talking about. This commission awarded my gallery, which is a nonprofit, $1,000. And that was seed money to be able to do art kits for homeless youth, domestic violence resource center, St. Mary's Home for Boys, Bridge Meadows, foster kids, a whole host of disenfranchised and marginalized populations. So number one, I want to thank this commission for the opportunity to be able to do that and to be able to maybe expand upon that. But from what Sarah said, those opportunities for kids to be able to do art. These are little 1 gallon Ziploc bags that have printmaking, doodling, a wide variety, Sculpey, all sorts of things that are a wide variety of art things for a wide variety of audiences. So that's something that I just wanted to give thanks to this commission, for making a possibility.
Ryan, anything further on this topic before we adjourn?
What I would like to do is encourage people to continue the conversation. I know we didn't get a lot of verbal time today, and some of that was me changing venues, and I apologize for that. The goal of today was to kind of kickstart the ideas, and all good ideas don't happen in silos. So call your fellow commissioners, kind of mull over ideas with them, as you're coming up with your SMART goal, right? And then I'll set a due date for you guys in my email when I send the SMART goals template out to you. And then I'll collect it and then I'll send it out before the next meeting so that everyone kind of sees what everyone else's ideas on, and we can have a nice robust conversation about where we're moving forward, right? It's one of the great values of being able to do this in 2 parts, for me anyways. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for being a part of the process. And I wanted to note that we're working Jeremy's little part was in response to some of the goals that we set last time about having more efficient meetings and having more structured meetings and being able to obtain our goals through our commission meetings and stuff like that, and using the Roberts rules as directed by the city bylaws bylaws. So So a lot of what was done today was in specific response to things that were goal set from the last retreat. So I hope that's seen that way. And I'm always, my phone's always open if you guys have further comments offline about the retreat and about the next session. But I'm really looking forward to seeing and collecting and putting all your SMART goals together. I'll stop talking now.
I have one little thing to add, Lynn, before we call it a night, which is the next retreat session is scheduled on the 27th of April from 5 to 7 p.m. In response to that poll that I sent out, are we willing to meet in person or are we not? We do have a small contingent of our commission that's not quite ready to meet in person. So we need to find a meeting space that can accommodate a hybrid, right? So we can have people there in person, but we can also have people come in virtually. So I went ahead and scheduled that. I reserved space in here at City Hall in the Columbia River Room for us to do that because we have video conferencing capability in there. And I have inquired with the Reaser whether they have that capability in the spaces that could accommodate this group, so that if we can, we'll do it at the Reaser. But if we can't, we have a home, we have a space to have the next retreat session in. And I think that that in-person experience is going to be a really it's going to contribute to a really productive retreat. I hope. So just wanted to give you a kind of a report out on that.
Sounds great. All right. I think that's it for tonight. Unless anyone has any last comments, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
See you next time.
Can you
everyone.
wait for a second to be able to share the chat or save the chat?
Yeah, it will save the chat.
I just saved it.
Okay, yeah, it does anyway. So like when I get the recording, Sharon, it has a separate file that's all the text from the chat.
Okay, cool.
Just so you know.
Okay.
So, and then I'll add, for the minutes of any meeting, I'm gonna add the chat to the end of the minutes. So when I get them from Bindi, I'll just add in the chat at the very end.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Now I remember you did that.
And I'm not ignoring you, Sharon. You asked about the census data, and she didn't reference where it's from. I just can only assume that it's from the 2020 census. And I can certainly I just couldn't get out of the screen to get into my file. So I can, if you just sit tight here for a second, I can cut and paste it into the.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, I think 2010 was one of the last ones that we did for Beaverton 101.
Yeah.
So I want to see how things have changed.
Okay, hang on a second. I'm gonna.
And if Ryan can unshare his screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a mess today. Thank you.
Aren't we all?
So, yeah.
Is that witching hour, you know?
It's been a witching year or 3.
And Jason, I'm so glad you were like tilted this way for a while. So you're upright now.
Okay, I'm gonna cut and paste this into. The chat. So stand by for a second.
Oh, that's great.
Everybody see that, yeah.
No, yeah, I don't know. I was expecting something else. I was like, I was gonna get like a link.
Oh yeah, no, this was actually just sent in an email from Nadia. So
Okay, yeah, no, the data that was so hearing that was a lot hearing that.
Yes.
I love data.
Yeah.
I did put that. Do we have any data on like the economic class of like who attends the arts events? Or that might be something that TV. The other organization. Yeah. Now that I'm articulating it out loud, that might be.
No, Laura, I don't know if that is captured.
no, we don't really capture demographic information.
Yeah.
We do with our grants. So when we have grant applicants, it's an optional like they can choose to participate or not. But we do try to collect demographic data from our grant applicants. But beyond that, we don't, and it is a really, it's tricky to gather demographic data.
No, for sure. I can only.
Yeah, but I love it. It reveals so much.
I'm also sometimes very discreet too. So, but I also like got census data. So like I'm on both sides. I'm private, but I understand that information sharing is like, you know, it's kind of wealth.
My subcommittee back in 2012 on a different committee, we did a survey in the city. We had 5,000 or 6,000 respondents, I think. But we had census data that had to do with, you know, how many people, you know, this, schooling, economic status, whether they're renters, whether they owned. I mean, it was a rich database, and it was for the purpose of our NACs, our neighborhood associations, and how do we outreach to them? That's, you know, the city has these 11 NACs that are just fantastic. I mean, I've reached out to other jurisdictions, Eugene and others, that, you know, some people do it, but we are far exceeding what a lot of cities do. And, you know, all that outreach we could be doing is just tremendous.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's missing is too, like as I think Lynn has mentioned, is the LGBTQIA community. I mean, single moms, especially going off of incorporating things for children, what would benefit single moms, single dads, single parents, or how to look at that of what's realistic in terms of events and who can even attend with their kids. If we're doing that, how can that be? And that all plays into demographics of who can and who will and who does attend.
Right. And Laura just sent us out a really great training that unfortunately I've got 2 things that I can't attend, but it was the LGBT.
Yes, I know. I checked. I was like, who's registered? Because then Sharon couldn't make it. And so I said, okay, well, if we can have one of the commissioners that does attend, give a report out.
Please do a report out, because I thought, you know, if HRO is doing that and there's no recording of it to review, then it's going to be left to those who attend to make a report.
I will be there.
Okay. All right. I'm Destry. I'm going to get a report from you.
You will. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks for all the information.
I will also see what I can round up, because this is just what Nadia anecdotally chose to share. It doesn't reveal all the census data. So I will see if I can get my hands on a fuller set of data for census for Beaverton and send that out in advance of our next retreat.
I think Lanny or Miles would have that.
Yeah. Lanny said, she did mention it kind of in passing today, that she thinks she can get access to it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's she was my touchstone for the other one, for the subcommittee back in 12.
Yeah.
So.
All right, y'all. Well,
thank you so much. You guys did a lot of work to put this on, and appreciated.
It's hard doing everything remote. It's just this is one of those things, those times when I really feel it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, between the technology not cooperating and not doing what you want it to do, to people feeling like it's just disconnected because you're just a face on the screen, to organizing information, it's just hard. It's
Can you put out a survey and see what percentage of people will be in the Columbia room?
Good.
I don't know. So, and I'm treading carefully here because I don't want to reveal the identity of the people that said that they're not comfortable.
No,
it's a very small number, Sharon. So it's going to.
I just want percentage.
It's a 95% attendance in person is okay. And we have a couple people who have immunocompromised family members living with them at home.
I absolutely respect that.
Yeah. So it
I don't
just,
think anyone would judge who
No.
wouldn't want to be there. Yeah, we all.
I don't think so either. I just.
Even if it's a travel conflict or something, since we're so used to Zoom meetings, I mean, that's really understandable.
You know, I mean, Laura, when you think about it, in City Hall, those people who are wearing masks and not wearing masks, there's a no judgment zone. There is a no shaming kind of thing. I mean, that's very important.
Yep,
Yeah.
I agree. I do it every day. It's, I have conversations every time I encounter people.
I do think it would be interesting to send out a survey after like this one, like this part one of just, I mean, super basic, maybe like 3 questions of like, how do you think that part 1 went? What would you like to see as maybe an open answer of, or what did you wish there was? And then any questions in case there's something remaining, because there were obviously some comments about it being different than the last retreat. And I think that there could be further discussion on which comes to that, because that's a valid concern on why it is different, but maybe there's a way of discussing goals when we have 2-year terms or we're appointed, maybe don't need to be addressed at every term, but having some discussion, or I'm sure there's going to be other questions along those same lines of why is it different. So maybe just finding out from new members or having a brief 3-question thing even before we finalize our planning going forward would maybe be helpful.
So Destry, what would you think about a pretty standardized, what went well? What would you improve? Free text.
What
let
went
people
well,
just-
or any questions that you still need answered. That I think like a basic to not only evaluate ourselves as we're doing things, but know then how it went. Well, that's like the standard of an evaluation, to know how it went and what to do going forward.
So one of the things I think is important to realize is I don't think that everyone was on the same page on the 2-part retreat.
Right.
And the goal of the retreat. So when we send out something like that, we should be very specific about, hey, the goal of the part 1 of the retreat was to achieve some goals that we set last time, and to review the goals and things that we set out to do last time in preparation for that goal setting, future looking that we're doing in the next part. Right.
Well, I mean, I will say that I feel like that was teed up. The agenda was sent out. The structure of the meeting was presented in previous Arts Commission meetings. So I feel like, there has been opportunities for people to express concern if there were things were being handled so differently that so while I definitely want to hear from people, I just want to say that it wasn't the first time that, we didn't spring it on.
I just think
tonight.
when we get the data back, I think it's important to know that it's half data, right? Because the retreat isn't over.
Right.
So when we get what went well, what didn't go well, if they're like, well, we didn't talk about what we wanted to do for our goals, that's correct, because that's next time. We were talking about what our previous goals were and kind of setting us up for that conversation. And
well, maybe
so,
it's one survey after both of them, though. Maybe it doesn't need to be one, but I think regardless, there should maybe be, because we didn't do that last time. So to then come into this meeting and have, even with the information presented, to have some survey of what do you think. We did our survey before for the last one of what we expected or what to talk about, but there was never any follow-up except for the actual meeting itself.
I agree.
Yeah, whether it's in the middle or after, to your point, I completely agree. So if it's 1 or 2 or.
Yeah, what do you think? Because I'm perfectly happy with us setting out a survey. I just want to make sure if we do send out a survey, that it's very clear that it's on the goals of our first part, not the full thing, because let people know what's coming so that.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Otherwise we're going to get useless information if they're like, well, we didn't get to set our goals.
It's really important to frame it accurately.
Yeah.
And, so if people misunderstood something, they need to know that, if you frame it accurately, what you're asking for out of that is very important, and it gives buy-in, and it gives them maybe, hey, okay, for the next one, maybe they'll be more on point or more engaged or whatever. I was surprised by some of the polling that you had, Ryan, about the 1 through 5 Likert. For example, the youth arts, if I remember right, and don't, my brain's a sieve right now. It seemed like low scores for what we had actually done. Oh, good, you're going back. No, not that.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Yeah, yes.
Check in. Yeah, so these guys right here.
No.
The actual poll that we answered.
The Likert you asked us to do. The results of the Likert scoring.
Okay, share results. So,
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so I think that's important. I actually had a phone call with Lynn earlier. I think it was yesterday. I don't remember. And I talked a little bit about this because I expected that the new commissioners wouldn't know.
And they articulated that.
Right, exactly. And I expected that. I think it's important for us to have that conversation as a group.
Right.
And say, hey, we're doing all this stuff, but a lot of it's happening in subcommittees, right? The last meeting, Jim spoke very specifically about where the meat or the sausage was made in this commission, and it's in the subcommittee meeting minutes, and that's an important conversation to have that I thought that this would spur on. Right.
Well, okay, to this, what's on the screen right now, number one, I would have expected this result.
Yeah.
That's not where I have a question. It's down farther.
Oh, sure. Let's select one.
The high school, number 2.
Yeah.
I actually think that this is on par.
Well, I can't see it. Scroll down.
Oh, you can't?
You scroll down yourself, Sharon.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm asleep at the wheel. Okay.
No,
I feel you. Don't worry.
Yeah. So we got 42% that said 3.
Okay.
We got 17 that was 4.
Okay, number 2 is on par. Yeah, I expected that.
Yeah, and I think that's a direct result of new commissioners, but also people not involved in the subcommittee meeting. Because to be honest, what was it, last month or just a few weeks ago, we selected
we haven't had a chance to report out.
Right, we haven't had a chance to report out.
People don't have the information to be able to, kind of intelligently answer that question.
Correct, and
that's telling in itself. That we haven't been able to report out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I think that is valuable information. Should we be waiting until the next main meeting to report out, or should we send an internal note about what the subcommittee meetings are doing?
That's a good question.
It's a question, it's a conversation piece.
Yep.
Or maybe it's, hey, maybe you should be checking the website and reading the meeting minutes when they pop up.
Exactly. But okay, so number 6, the research. We have been so research centric. I'm sorry. I'm that kind of captures exactly what I would have thought. Public art, that's kind of like mid range. Again, it's reporting out. Performing arts events advising.
So I think that's like, hey, if you're a performing artist, we set up, kind of like Total Valley Creates does these artist support series where they have people to say, hey, this is how you manage your money. This is how you do taxes for arts and, things like that, how advice, putting up programming and support. That's what I remember people talking about from last.
Okay.
So
I'd almost do like a parenthetical thing after that to kind of illuminate programs to aid artists. That's all over the map.
Yep.
Yeah.
And again, these are literally cuts and pastes from those dot exercises that we did last time.
Sure, I get it, and then the DEI, that has been just, more recently put forward. And so, yeah,
Right.
so no, I think,
And I think it also depends on your perspective of what DEI is, of either
Yeah.
where you think it's progressing or not, or where that's at. So that's a super touchy and subjective question, apparently.
But you noticed, I just wanted to point out, you noticed that no one put a 5.
I'm sorry, what?
That,
You
which
noticed
I
on the
think is good.
DEI, no one put a 5, which I think is a positive thing.
I do too. Yeah.
Right.
I think it's positive that it's at a 2. It shows I felt kind of good and accurate about it being at a 2.
Well, there's like some traction, but lots of work to be done.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's why I think I put in the chat, if we could work with Alexis, who's the Cultural Inclusion Program Manager, and if we can break our silos down in our commissions and boards and commissions, and that is to work with the Diversity Advisory Board and with the Human Rights. HRAC and DAB are there. We just need to, invite some conversation between our boards. I know that BCCI worked with DAB about night market, but that was like a kind of on the surface kind of stuff. We should take advantage of some of the things and some of the work that's being done by some of these other folks that are really into it.
And give a value add to what they're doing, and rather than recreating the wheel, question mark.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm gonna stop sharing that.
We might have some things that they haven't considered, and they as well. So we have this rich conversation potential.
So one of the things that we didn't talk about, Laura, was the guest speaker for the next session.
Yep.
You want to talk about that offline?
Yeah, I'm gonna actually just officially end the meeting. Okay. Meeting adjourned. Yes.